What's happening, YouTube? It's Simon466cards, and today we're going to talk about Beckett finally operating like a real business in the hobby after years of neglect and us in the hobby just wishing they would do something, anything to evolve. So that's what we'll talk about today. Make sure to stay to the very end for a very juicy tidbit about the sale by Beckett to PSA and collectors. But first, what am I talking about? You might be thinking, I'm talking about the label change that happened this past week. That's only part of it. We got to go further back. A few months ago, if we go to here, the new GM of Beckett, Colin, he was on Neo's channel and had a lengthy 40-minute sit-down interview. And this was 3 months ago. And then after that, the GM, Colin, he had a sit down with Jeff Wilson on the Jeff Wilson show, and that was a month ago. And most recently, to coincide with this new slab, he was a guest on the Stacking Slabs podcast. And so this is a lot of FaceTime. Half an hour here, 40 minutes here, 48 minutes here. That is a lot of exposure for Colin, the new head of Beckett. And if you think about how much you heard from Beckett or anybody from Beckett before Colin, it's just night and day. And Colin's basically taking a page out of the SGC playbook or SGC Pete playbook, where Peter Steinberg was front and center and the face of that brand. And clearly that's what Colin is trying to do by being available for interviews somewhat often here. And whether or not this will work, it'll be interesting given that he still obviously is under the collector's portfolio. He is still second in line to PSA in the collector's portfolio. That'll never change, but it'll be interesting what he's able to do. But, we've had these podcasts and YouTube videos where he's getting interviewed, and it's just more exposure for the brand. It's just something that just being on screen and telling the story of the Beckett brand and what the plans are in the future, like that's good, just so that there's some news coming out about what is happening and awareness of the Beckett brand. And then obviously this past week we heard about this new label, new slab with a cleaner look, some security features and new font and a new auto grade where it's just here instead of a separate square thing that would move around in the slab. Overall, I haven't heard a lot of negative feedback. This is all good stuff. And you can see here again, Colin's name is on this thing. He is running this like it's his own business basically. And so that is a very, very big change from what Beckett used to do, where you would never hear from anyone. But he's not just doing FaceTime. He's not just making a new label. He's also doing good marketing. Here is an example where, again, Jeff Wilson from Sports Card Investor, this happened on his most recent Cards on the Table YouTube video, where this little segment, you can see here, new labels is a segment here. And it's honestly, it's sparked because Colin and the Beckett team did some marketing, which is a unique and novel concept for the people at Beckett in the past. So let's see what happened here.
Beckett announced just a couple of days ago that they have a brand new slab design, and we have some of the very first ones ever issued here in our hands. They were gracious enough to give Teapot and I the heads up and say, hey, if you send us a couple of cards, overnight them, we'll overnight you back the new slab, so you can get a feel for what these things look like and be some of the very first ones ever in the new slab design. This is, by Beckett's own words, this is not a complete overhaul. This is an enhancement or a little bit of a reworking, and you can see that in what they've done here. Yep. They've done things such as, well, first of all, they've gone back to the classic Beckett logo in the upper left-hand corner of the slabs, the logo with the crest here instead of that B-star logo that they started to experiment with for some time. But the biggest differences that you see is on the grading label itself. So first of all, a little bit of a bolder font. It's
And I'll stop it right there. But you could see the amount of awareness and free marketing, basically, just by offering Jeff and Teapot a couple of free slabs to be graded. And now you have a full segment on the biggest channel in the hobby on one of their flagship shows. It's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward, but it's a good way to do marketing. And so again, just some very simple concepts, just interacting with the big names in the hobby, giving away some free grading to the people that run one of the biggest shows. This isn't that hard, and yet they're doing it. So kudos to Colin and the Beckett team for finally turning the this Beckett ship around. Whether or not we're going to succeed, who knows? What this also offers is a new opportunity for content creators to make content. And that's what Neo Cards and Comics has done here. You can see he has made a video about the new Beckett labels, and he goes into it in this 12-minute video again. All of this happens because they have created the new slabs, and they've given a bit of a kick in the butt to the brand. It's a breath of fresh air, and all of this is great. The one thing I'll note is we'll never know if this was part of the plan or if collectors bought Beckett to kill the brand like they did with SGC and to make it a boutique brand. We'll never know because, of course, a few days after the Beckett sale, there was that famous, whatever you want to call it, letter from the Congressman Patrick Ryan talking about, this is a monopoly, and sending a letter to the FTC, et cetera, et cetera. And whether or not that changed the plans of collectors. We'll never know if this was always the plan or if it changed some of Nat Turner's plans for the Beckett brand. But here we are. I had my doubts during the initial days after the sale about their actual faith and belief in the Beckett brand, but it sure seems like they're plowing full speed ahead with the Beckett brand, which is great. You always like to have more options than fewer. But why did all of this happen? Why is this sudden influx happening of Beckett news? Why is there so much news about Beckett? Why are there all these changes? Well, it goes back to what I talked about earlier. It is the fact that PSA's parent company Collectors bought Beckett, and this was in December of 2025. So that is 6 months ago. And as a result of that, the old owner is no longer in the picture. The new owner, obviously Collectors, Nat Turner, and that group, they have a lot more money, whereas the previous owner, well, he was a convicted felon. He basically laundered money from a bunch of businesses. And you can see here, this is an article from last month, April of 2026, where he has to pay $1.6 billion in restitution to the companies that he essentially stole money from and used it to fund his lifestyle. And obviously that is a lot of money. And so the sale of Beckett is one of the many things that this person is going to do, Greg Lindbergh, to recoup some of that money to pay restitution to the various people and entities that he owes. But the juicy part is what I found in these court documents. You can see here, this is in the United States District Court for the Western District of North Carolina, USA versus Greg Lindbergh, defendant. And so if we scroll all the way down in this thing, don't ask me how I found this, just I'm a lunatic sometimes. But if we scroll all the way down, if we can, here it is, I saved it. I am going to read this to you because it is truly a spectacular statement. As reported in the Special Master's third status report, the Special Master is someone that is assigned to the case to basically figure out how to get all the money back that is owed by Greg Lindbergh as restitution for the people that he stole money from, or the companies he stole money from. As reported in the Special Master's third status report, a group of specified affiliated companies known as the Beckett Group were sold by its parent company, Portfolio Group Collectivist, during the fall of 2025. Because of the extensive debt encumbering Beckett and Collectivist, the sale did not yield proceeds that could be distributed as restitution payments. However, the sale significantly reduced the debt associated with Collectivist and will therefore make the future sale of companies within the Collectivist portfolio more likely to yield more value for restitution purposes. So that is why Beckett never did anything in the last few years, because they had a bunch of debt. We know about the collectivist thing. It's also hilarious that the name and the word collectivist shows up this many times in a U.S. government legal document. It's because the name is so silly. But yeah, like this is kind of insane. Even though collectivists sold the Beckett brand and that piece to collectors and PSA, they didn't actually get any money net from the sale because they had to pay down their debt. And if you read this carefully, it says the sale significantly reduced the debt. That means it didn't bring it down to zero. It just cut it down by a large portion, which is wild because you have to think that this company, the collectivists sold Beckett for tens of millions of dollars at least, if not 100. And so the fact that even with that amount of money they still couldn't pay down all the debt is insane, and really explains how and why Beckett was never able to do anything in the COVID boom and the years since then, because even though we all wanted it to happen, their hands were completely tied by the fact that they couldn't invest or reinvest in the company because they had so much debt, as you clearly see here. And so I just find that, again, just unbelievable. And so if anybody is able to find financial case docket entry number 94 of the Special Master's third status report in this case, looking at you, Auburn 35, you are a wizard at these type of things. Yeah, let me know what you find, because I think we're going to get some more details there. But yeah, this little tidbit is wild. It is absolutely wild. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments down below on this specific piece, but also for this entire video. It's just talking about how the Beckett brand is clearly revitalized. It is night and day compared to what was happening in the preceding 5-6 years since COVID, basically. So yeah, it's good to see. You love to see it. Just a hobby company operating like a real business, as simple as that may sound, because it wasn't happening before. Thank you as always for listening and watching. I'll talk to you all soon. Cheers.